And you are live. We are officially live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Don't Fret, the Men's Mental Health Summit, the Emotional Freedom Summit. I am trying to decide what to actually call this thing, because it's really interesting, right? Because particularly as men, we connect to this idea of mental strength, which means that we're often resistant to the idea of emotions. So I love the fact that it's kind of like a focus summit around men's mental health, but I feel it's so much more about emotions. And this is not on our list of conversations, but I'm really, really curious to hear your take on like the mental and emotional connection. Yeah.
Good morning. You know what? Here's what I would say about that. I would say that mental strength is absolutely commensurate with your ability to deal with emotions. That's what defines mental strength. Is your ability to be aware of your emotions, have insight into your emotions, exercise some emotional control over your life. That to me is almost the definition of mental strength. So to me, those two concepts
they're super tied.
Fantastically tied together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that, I mean, if you think about your health, it's your mental, it's your emotional, and it's your physical. Like really, that is kind of your basic health. So those three things are your triad of your base. If you get those three things really going good, because you think about it, your emotions completely affect your health and fitness. Yeah, like if you're feeling down,
they're all connected.
They're all so closely connected. So, yeah.
Yeah. And welcome also, by the way. You may have noticed this in the original interview that I tend to do a lot of things by the cuff. I don't like to do a lot of prep work. So that literally... Yeah, I'm not subtle that way. I am not subtle that way. But welcome, Jon and Missy, and welcome everybody watching. It's so good to see you guys again. I was editing the interview that we did, and there were so many amazing nuggets in there. And it's just set me off in this kind of like a whirlwind of exploration beyond that around like self-esteem and, we connected over the stuff around Black Star and addiction, and it's incredible. So thank you for doing that, first of all, and thank you for being here today.
Our pleasure, man. Our pleasure. We're here to support.
And the original interview that we did was focused a lot on the relationships side. So we talked a little bit about the kind of concepts around Lifebook, where it came from. We talked about your relationship, which is a truly inspirational thing to watch. It really, really is. But I don't want to rehash any content here. So I've got a number of questions, and I really, really want to kind of hone in on some of the uncertainty right now, because we're about to step into 2021. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a little bit wild. And I saw this quote earlier today. It was by a Stanford medicine psychiatrist called Anna Lemke. It was on addiction and mental health issues are exacerbated by health concerns, financial worries, isolation, and disruption in daily rhythms. So effectively, they're concerns about the future, right? That level of uncertainty. So how do we stop fear from taking over when we have that uncertainty?
Well, I'll tell you the answer, but you might not like it. The answer is pretty simple. You focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. Now, that is easier said than done, way easier said than done, but that is the answer. So you damn well better know what you want, Martin. And that is something that far too few people actually know. But if you understand deeply the kind of a person that you want to become and the life you want to live, and you focus on that and you move toward that every day, the chaos and insecurity in the external world almost becomes background noise. Does that land? You get what I'm saying?
100%. But
yeah,
why do so few people know what they want?
Because nature has given us a very very interesting responsibility when it comes to using our brains, and that is that thinking is a choice. Thinking does not happen automatically. You can decide to sit down and face an issue or not face it. You can decide to think about solving a problem or just not do that. You can decide that you want to just go get drunk tonight and not worry about any of your responsibilities, or you can focus on what you need to be focused on to make your life better. It takes a conscious decision that you are going to sit down and think through the most important areas of your life and decide the person that you want to become and the life that you want to be living, and then move toward that with intention every day. It's not an automatic process.
That's right. We have free choice. I mean, that's part of being human. You get to choose what goes on, right? But I want to just talk a little bit about fear and what we call mind guard. And it's basically, look, our one job as humans is to get command of our faculties, which means command of our thought process, command of what goes on inside, our emotions, all the things we're talking about, our health, things that we can actually really control ourselves. And once you make that conscious choice, like I'm going to take control of my own life, I am going to get command of myself, then you started the little motor, if you will, in yourself. Like, okay, now what I'm going to do is focus on what I want. Now, that's a practice, you guys. That's a practice. When you start, because your mind will just go to a negative thing, and then you can be sucked down a negative, dark fear road, right? It happened to me the other day with the teenagers. I won't go into it, but I went down this negative road, and I was like, what the heck? That's not at all what happened, and that's not at all what I want. So it happens, but it's a practice. And I think meditation is one of the most important things you can do to get that, to train your mind. You have to train your mind for it to do what you want it to do. You know what you want, you know your vision. So you have to literally, and it's a constant practice. And
well, you know what you want if you sat down and thought.
That's right.
If you've been through Lifebook or done some other, like what you read Nathaniel Brandon's books, or
Yes.
if you've done some work like that, and you get a clue on the kind of a life that you want to build, then Missy's right. You've got to get control of your faculties.
Yes.
And you know what Sadhguru said, which is very interesting, and we're big Sadhguru fans. That guy's got some dialed in stuff. He said basically you've got three faculties that you've got to get control of, and they're your faculties that control the past, the present, and the future. Your faculty that controls the past is your memories, all your memories, and that's not just your conscious memories; it's your subconscious memories. You have genetic stuff in there.
Ancestral.
I think that in the yogi tradition, there's 16 different kinds of memory that they've divided into. So you got your memories, you've got your senses, and this is interesting, Martin, because I've never heard anyone say this before, but your senses only work in the present moment. Your sight, smell, touch, right? It's only present moment. It doesn't work in the past. It doesn't work in the future. That shit's for present moment.
Yeah.
And then you've got your imagination, which controls the future. So you've got your memories, your senses, and your imagination. And he basically says that your job is to get control of those faculties, because anytime you're feeling angst, anytime you're feeling fear, anytime you're feeling negative emotions, one or more of those faculties has simply turned against you in that moment. You're using your imagination to do anxiety about the future. You're using your memory to do anxiety about the past. You're still suffering from things that happened 10 years from now, and you're suffering from things that haven't even happened yet. And he basically says, so that's when you need to understand you're doing this to yourself, and the inoculation is to go to your senses, get in the present moment, because usually you're in a nicely air-conditioned room and you've got clothes and you don't have an empty belly, and usually you'll find that everything is just fine. You're just doing this to yourself using your memory or using your imagination. That's profound stuff, right?
That's genuinely, I love the fact that something is so kind of accessible, and, you know, I hate to use the word simple in this context, but it's very consumable, it's very manageable, it's very imaginable.
Well, that's what I loved about that, Martin, because I've been saying for the last 10 years that my favorite quote of all time is by Marcus Aurelius, who said, if you're upset by something, it's not the thing itself that's upsetting you. It's your assessment of the thing. It's the way you're processing the thing.
That's everything.
And
Right.
this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's that quote. You are in control of how you process it, and that's going to make all the difference. But it's so friggin' hard to do that. In the moment, when you're pissed off, you want to be pissed off. You
Yes.
don't necessarily want to solve the problem, right? So for 10 years, I've been looking at that quote saying, it's absolutely true. It's the most profound quote ever, but it's so hard to do. And then I came across that Sadhguru video where he said, here's all you're doing. You're either using your memories or your imagination to screw yourself up in the moment. Let that go, get into your senses, get into the present moment, and you'll realize that your assessment is not as bad as the actual situation. So you're right. That accessible little thought really broke me through to how to use that principle more effectively in my own life.
And you get to use then your, when we talk about this idea of getting crystal clear on what you want, it's a future concept. So you get to use your imagination as a tool.
Right.
That is 100% right.
In a positive
that-
way, as opposed to fear and anxiety, because you don't know what's coming. But if you have that life vision and you know what's coming, then the fear and anxiety can be subsided.
Yeah.
And that's what literally, it's a thinking tool that allows you to harness the power of your imagination and focus it on the future that you really want. And once you have that tool, then you get to move from the passenger seat of your life to the driver's seat of your life. And that, at its core, is our core concept. This is why Missy and I are on this planet.
Yeah.
Help people do what we did, which is to move from the passenger seat of our life to the driver's seat of our life.
It's basically you become conscious of the fact that you are making the decisions for your own life, whether you are doing it yourself or you're allowing someone else to do it.
Yep.
So if you're not in the driver's seat, someone else is driving your car.
Yep.
Someone else is driving your life, and you've given them the keys. So it's like no matter what, you are in charge of your own perception and your own perspective.
Whether you choose to exercise that or
Whether
not,
yeah,
you are in control.
That's right.
Even if it doesn't feel like it. Even if you don't want it, you can't get away from it. Getty
You
Lee
always
of
have a
Rush
choice.
said, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't get away from it.
that's it.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about kind of Nathaniel Brandon's work on self-esteem. And like you mentioned that it was a crucial tool in working through your personal anxiety. So if anyone watching this has not been part of the summit and heard Jon's story, I invite people to do that, because effectively it was 8-year anxiety leading to full-blown agoraphobia, and this self-esteem piece was crucial. So I feel it's like not a term that is used very often. We might use confidence, but we don't talk about self-esteem very often. But what did it mean to you?
Well, self-esteem has gotten a very bad rap over the last, the way that most people define self-esteem is not the way Nathaniel Brandon, who is widely regarded as the pioneer in that field of study, defined it. You know, Nathaniel defined self-esteem as competence to cope with the basic challenges of life and the experience of being deserving of happiness. So there's two components to it. The first is confidence, your experience of efficacy in the world. You can cope with what life is going to throw at you. Confidence to cope in the basic challenges of life, or competence, right?
Yeah.
And the second piece of it is that you're deserving of happiness, that you know, that
You're worthy.
you're worthy.
You are
Joy
worthy.
and abundance is
Yeah.
how your life should be.
Yeah.
So when I was going through that very difficult time, Missy was the one that identified that self-esteem is the lever. This is a self-esteem problem. Jon, you're not feeling right now like you're competent to cope with what life is throwing at you. You're getting broken by the situations that are coming down. So you're not competent to cope with the basic challenges of life right now. You can't drive out of your friggin' driveway. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to a grocery store, right? And there's probably some worthiness issues in there that you don't feel like you're deserving of happiness.
Yeah, for sure.
So we identified that as the lever. And so I went deep into it. I started studying what makes up self-esteem. You can't fake it. Self-esteem doesn't come from looking in the mirror and saying, oh, you're beautiful 40 times a day. Self-esteem comes from some very specific practices, which you have been exposing yourself to, Martin, having read the 6 pillars of self-esteem.
Yeah. Working on it, work in progress, isn't it? It's
Yep, amazing. So anyway, so we went deep there, and we actually reached out to Nathaniel, and I got into pretty deep psychotherapy with him for a few years, and that was the most profound growth experience of my life up to that point.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And Missy, from your side of things, because obviously, like, Jon needed to go through that work to break through that awful period of time. But I would imagine you kind of went through a lot of work with him. So I was curious of like what your breakthrough moments were, what you were experiencing.
Well, you know, I started reading Nathaniel's work when I was like 18 or 19. And so I went through that really early. And for me, I found myself, like when I was doing self-esteem work with Nathaniel, reading his books. This was before we met him. And for me, I fell in love with myself through doing that work. Instead of being alienated from yourself, you guys, that's, you know, that sounds kind of weird, but that's the first step in self-actualization, is when you realize that, you know, this is you, and you have to, it's like meeting yourself. So one of the big exercises that I did was called, it's healing the child within. And Nathaniel does this in one of his books. I think it's in Honoring the Self, which is a really heady psychological book, but that's my vibe. So that was the one that spoke to me the most. But it was healing the child within. So basically, it's simply, you go in and you do a meditation and you go back to your child self, wherever it got a little trauma or crunchy, and you just, as your adult self, you hold that child, and you basically hold it with love and just bright light until you become one, which sounds kind of out there and esoteric, but it's all very much, it's internal healing. And then from there, I had a relationship with myself. And so that's when I talk about that motor, it's like once you realize that you are worthy and that you're supposed to be here. You're not a bad person because you were born. You know, unfortunately our culture kind of puts that on you. But so it was massive. For me, it completely massive. Nathaniel Brand, and I was so happy because I was able to tell him after we met him, that changed my life. When I was 18, 19 years old, completely changed.
She was ahead of me in that she had already done that work, and she knew that that's the work that I needed to do. So so I went on my couple year journey then doing that work, and it was profound. Missy was my guide, and she was also really picking up the slack because I was incapacitated. I couldn't do anything. So Miss really was instrumental in getting us through that situation.
And finally now, because just from a conversation that I had this morning with my partner, Rebecca, and I love the fact that I'm with somebody that I can have these types of conversations with. So she's going through Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, again. So ultra powerful book. But that idea of meaning is an incredibly interesting conversation piece that you can have for days. But I'm really curious then what your take on meaning is.
Well, Martin, we call that purpose. Yeah. That's what that's the term that we use, and it's the same thing. It's what meaning am I going to attach to my life, and what is my purpose in life? These are all synonyms, right? They're sort of interchangeable. So in our methodology, we call that purpose. And so one of the things that we really spent a lot of time studying and thinking about when we were younger is, why are we here? What is the meaning of our life? What's the purpose of our life? And after years and years of exploration, we wrote a purpose statement, and we've had it for 15 years. And here's what it is. Our purpose in life is to create the highest possible quality of life that we can for ourselves first, and then for the people we love, and to help others around us do the same to the extent that we can. So it's to create the best possible life for ourselves and the people we love. And if we have anything valuable to share with others that we pick up along the way, we want to help others around us do the same. And the most powerful manifestation of that so far has been Lifebook.
Yeah.
That's the tool that we use to create our extraordinary life. And thankfully, we found out 15 years ago that it's an empty system that other people can use to do exactly the same thing that we did. So that's sort of now at the center of our purpose in life.
It's very true. It is very, very true. I'm excited to spend a lot of time over the Christmas period doing another iteration. But like you say, when you've done it a few times, you're just kind of nuancing it a little bit.
You're polishing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gets more and more powerful every time you polish it. And this is the month that Missy and I revisit our life book and our life vision too. We used to take a trip alone together, like a week-long trip in December every year, just to work on our life vision. Now we're pretty much living in a vacation, so we don't need to do that. But this is the month. This is the month to really get clear on what you want your next year to be like.
Yeah, because one of the big frustrations I have is when you see, particularly on social media, that whole idea of like 2019 has just been such a terrible year for all of these reasons. It's like now 2020 comes along and 2019 all of a sudden looks quite good, right? But are we going to take that level of fear into 2021, that level of fear and uncertainty into 2021? I'm not particularly up for that, but how does Lifebook help navigate a different perspective as we move into the new year?
Well, Martin, you cannot always control the things that happen outside of you, but what happens in here is 100% you. 100% you. And if you can get clear on what it is that you want to make out of this, then you've got a lot to focus on. What happens out there becomes literally less important. You've got a job to do. You know the vision that you want to manifest, and you can start working on that vision. You get less and less dependent on external circumstances the more strength you get in here.
That's true. And Joe Dispenza says, Dr. Joe Dispenza, amazing. If you guys don't know him, look him up. He's incredible. He says a simple thing: where your awareness is where your focus goes, or something like that.
Where your energy is.
Where your energy is. But it's basically, if you can just catch your awareness, like, it's hard to talk about these words because these concepts, because they are so esoteric kind of. But when you're right at the beginning of going down a fear road, if you can consciously catch that is getting command of your mind. Instead of just letting it go, it's like as soon as you become conscious that you're doing that, if you're going down a dark road, that's it. That's the moment of beauty, when you can become conscious of it, because then you can shift. And as soon as you're conscious, it almost automatically, you're like, oh, okay, I got to go over here. I mean, once you get that practice.
But what she just said at the end there, I've got to get over here, that's the key.
Yeah.
Because if you've taken the time to sit down and take a look at your life, take a look at where you are, take a look at who you are, and think about what you want to become, and the kind of life that you want to put together. If you have that vision intact and it is dialed in and it resonates with you and it's compelling to you, then it's easy to catch yourself being negative and say, oh, no, I'm not doing that program. Yeah. This is what I want to create over here. Mm-hmm. You get your mind off of all the crazy traumatic shit out there in the world that's happening right now. And you are able to get command of care and worry and fear, and take all that energy and put it right over here into your life vision.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have that. You've got to have that North Star. You've got to understand what you want, because if you don't understand what you want, going into the 2020s, you're screwed. Yeah. You are screwed. You're going to be a little twig floating around in the ocean, wherever the tide of life happens to take you, whatever social tidal waves there are, whatever political tidal waves there are, whatever economic tidal waves there are, you're just going to be bouncing around with the situation as opposed to controlling your own destiny. And that's what we're all about, man.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to say it for me, because I like simplicity, is basically whatever you focus on, that grows. If you believe that your thoughts become things and your focus is how things really manifest, well, then you'll all of a sudden start being really careful about what you focus on.
That's exactly right.
Really, we are powerful creatures, and we're waking up to that fact right now, and it's going to continue. We're going through a massive awakening. We're realizing, man, we really do manifest automatically without if you don't focus your manifestation powers, which is just simply your focus, your intention, wherever your eyes are, wherever your energy goes, your focus, that is what you magnify.
Yeah.
So like John and I talk about this all the time. We had a thing a few years ago, walk away from hate. If you don't want to be in a hateful thing or whatever the bad thing is in this culture that we're dealing with, you just simply don't give it your energy and your focus and your attention, and it will wither and die. It's an we live in a vibrational, energetic world. So,
and what's quite funny is that, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have heard all of that and gone, that's just woo-woo nonsense.
yeah.
100% would have said that. But I'm looking at two people that are living such an incredible life, a truly inspiration with an amazing relationship that you can just see in front of my eyes. And if you're telling me to, thankfully I've gone past this journey a while ago, but if you're telling me to believe a certain thing, to manifest what you have, I'm going to make those changes. Like, it makes sense. Model the people that are doing what you want.
Well, it comes down to your first question about the uncertainty of the future and the uncertainty of what might happen, and how do you get away from that fear? And what I said is, you focus on what you want, not on what you don't want, and that is exactly what Missy just said.
Yeah.
And so, Martin, the critical component becomes, you have to know what you want. Otherwise, you don't have that luxury. You can't focus on what you want unless you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that. You have to know where you're going, or you're screwed. You have to know who you want to become, or you're screwed. You have to know the life that you want to build, or you have no decision-making framework. You have no framework to tell you which is the right path to take if you don't know where you're going.
And you get gobbled up in someone else's vision that you haven't thought about. You get it.
And case in point as well, because obviously this is part of the Men's Mental Health Virtual Summit, and I was asked a question a couple of weeks back: what does it look like if you fail? And I came up with this. Then he said, what does it look like if you succeed? And it was blurry. I couldn't articulate it. I couldn't describe it. I had to very, very quickly start to think about, oh God, I need to get a vision for success and see what that looks like. So I'm drawn to that instead of like.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about, right?
No,
here.
so Martin, that right there is that's how most people are, because here's the thing. You'll spend more time focusing on the negative. That's human nature, because we don't want to get eaten by a tiger. We don't want to get friggin' hit by a hurricane. We need to survive. So of course we're going to want to make sure that we try to take care of all of our exposures. What we're a little less clear on is what would be our ideal situation. And I think most people are what you just described. I think that's where most people are, and that's why Missy and I are here to encourage as many people as possible to think about that other side, to get a vivid, crystal clear picture of how you want your life to be, and then start making decisions from that place.
Right.
Little by little, start making progress, and that's how to create an extraordinary life.
And that's literally how the mechanics of the human body and mind are wired.
Yeah,
We're
true.
supposed to do that. It's just that we never got taught that. We never learned that.
Right.
But that is how we're built.
And so
that's
often
how
we're drawn to things that other people decide for us. So to your point from earlier, Missy, how you did read Nathaniel Brandon's book, and it created this relationship with yourself. So you knew exactly who you were whilst you were forming these desires and forming these wants. So they were your dreams.
Massive.
And we've only got a few minutes left because I've over-talked, but I want to get through at least 2 of these audience questions, if that's okay. Because the first one is, I think it's a position where a lot of people are when they're first starting out on any kind of quest like this. I feel like I have to work so hard to earn money to live and provide for my family that I don't have time for things like self-care and intimacy. How do you find balance across different categories?
Well, that's really what Lifebook does. It helps you find balance across categories. But I want to share 2 thoughts on that question. The first is, if you're giving so much that you have nothing left to give, I mean, it's the cliche, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on firmly across your neck and mouth before you help the people around you. It's as simple as that. If you give away everything to where you have nothing left to give, then you have nothing left to give. And Missy and I we've worked with so many couples, especially moms, especially stay-at-home moms, especially moms that are trying to do a career too. Like they are overwhelmed and exhausted and frazzled, but men are the same, trying to make their career go, and right? Everybody's in this boat. And we've just realized the incredible power of self-care. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, babe?
I mean, that self-care is one of the main things to do. Look,
You have to do it.
Jon just said it. If you don't have anything to give away, you can't care for your family. You can't do a good job earning a living. You can't, be there for your spouse. If you have nothing, if you're completely depleted. So, but unfortunately, that's how our society, it's backwards. It's like, because selfish has been such a naughty word to people, but it's not selfish to take care of yourself so that you can care for others. I mean, that's how it's like. You guys, I'll talk about the motor again. You need to get started in your own self motor of energy making, which is self-esteem, it's purpose, it's all these things. Clarity, and then you can help others. But I'll tell you, self-care, there's if you do just a couple of things, I'm not sure if this person's a mom or a dad or neither, doesn't matter. Your self-care starts, I think, at night. Go to bed at a good time, take a salt bath. When you take a salt bath, it literally takes all the toxins out of your body.
Candles, incense.
Yeah.
Gratitude ritual in the morning.
If you're with your partner, touch each other. You don't have to have sex, but put your hands on each other, touch each other, cuddle, hold each other. Then the next morning, then that sets you up for your morning time. And the first thing you should do is start with a gratitude. Just before you get out of bed, all you have to do is say thank you. Just thank you. Thank you thanks that I woke up, that my body's here, Simple things like that can get you out of that overwhelm. And the bottom line is you have to switch it. You've got to have a different belief of, it's instead of, I don't have time to take care of myself, I don't have time not to take care of myself.
I don't have time to do anything else before I take care of myself.
Right,
that's
like
the truth, man.
Yeah.
It's a limiting belief. The limiting belief is that I can't do this.
There's not enough time.
There's not enough time.
Yeah. You have to do this.
You have to. You have to switch that around.
That's number one. And then number two thing I want to talk about is we learned something a few years ago that was profound. And it's about making money and quality of life and so on. And basically there will never be enough unless you know your number, unless you know the kind of a life, exactly the kind of a life you're trying to build, and exactly how much that life is going to cost. We don't want to work 1 hour more than we need to work to pay for the quality of life that we want to pay for. Now, this is huge because most people never think about it. All they want is to make more money.
That's why they stay on that treadmill.
We know the number. So I do two things for this person. The first thing is you have got to put a self-care program in place for yourself. You got to do that for your kids. You got to do that for your wife. You've got to do that for the world. That's number one. You're not going to be worth a shit if you're not worth a shit. You've got to take care of yourself. And number two, take a look at the money that you need. Take a look at your car payment. Take a look at your house. Take a look at your lifestyle and ask yourself, is this what I'm working for?
Question everything.
Question everything.
Totally.
Could I be living a different lifestyle that wouldn't be so demanding on me? Would I be happier with less? Because you might be happier with less. Really question, do I need two Lexuses? Is that why I'm putting in 16-hour days so that I can have these two cars? I mean, when Missy and I did that, it was absolutely profound, Martin, because basically what we realized is we need so much less money than we ever thought to be happy. And why should we work 16, 18 hours a day for another painting on our wall or for another frigging car in our garage? We're not going to do that. We want the hours of our days. We want to be able to spend the hours of our days the way we want to spend them. So those are the two things that I would say to a person in that situation.
Well, to be fair, Jon, I've seen some of the art that you produce, so I know that you just put your own on the wall, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Give me some time to make some art, I'll be happy.
Yeah. And I guess this one we've kind of already answered. I'm constantly angry at the way society is going. I don't want to feel angry anymore, but I can't seem to shut it off. Any recommendations? And we've talked about that energy flow, like just walk the other way. So I don't want to kind of go into that one instead, but...
Well, let me tell you
Sure.
what I feel about it, because I've got something I think important to say about
You've
that.
struggled with
Yeah, I'm that guy too.
Fair.
But here's the deal about anger. Anger usually comes up when your boundaries have been violated. When you feel that your boundaries have been violated in one way or another, that's usually what creates anger. And so if you're feeling angry at what's going on in the world, you need stronger boundaries so that stuff doesn't get in. And Martin, that's exactly what Missy and I did 4 years ago when we made the very courageous decision to leave Chicago, where we were running 4 big companies, and we had a big life in Chicago. Massive estate home outside of the city, penthouse in this. I mean, we were there for 25 years.
We were deep in the matrix.
We were deep in the matrix. And we made the decision. We made the decision to unplug from the matrix, to move to a remote Pacific island and to watch the shit show from the sidelines, plugging in whenever we wanted, at our leisure, at our pleasure, and unplugging whenever we wanted. And we did that, and that was not easy. It was not an easy thing to do. So now when we watch the craziness that's going on in the world, we don't feel anger very much because our boundaries are not being violated.
It's sad.
We feel sadness.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel frustration. But anger comes when you're being put upon by others or by certain situations.
And that's certainly happening around
Yeah,
the
it
world
is.
right now.
So
Our
my-
rights are being violated.
Exactly. Our rights are being violated. We were so much closer to totalitarianism than any of us
The
thought.
whole world.
The whole world rolled over at the same time and did what they were told, and we're still haven't worked our way through it. But the inoculation to feeling anger in this situation is to make your own life more self-sufficient. Make your boundaries stronger. Become more autonomous. Remove yourself as much as you can
Become
from
sovereign.
that shit show. Become
right.
sovereign within
The
yourself.
sovereign nation inside
right?
yourself.
You'll still feel sadness. You'll still feel frustration. But anger, you can actually dismiss that emotion.
That's
And I would also, as an aside, stop focusing on the news. Stop watching it. You want to put your focus there. That's you're gonna get some frustration and angst.
Yep. Focus on your life vision.
Yeah, your
if
own
you
life.
have one. Or if you don't.
Yeah. Eat a salad. That's the alternative. And you mentioned then about evening rituals, about intimacy and connecting with each other and touching each other. And one of the questions was when it comes to relationships, because I know you work with couples as well, what is your number one kind of go-to strategy to reignite intimacy when the flame has died out?
Well, the most important thing in any relationship is time commitment and really being together, communication and time. And it's
Connection.
It's connection.
It comes down to connection. That's the magic word.
Which is really time. It's spending time. It's really
And how you spend it.
and how you spend that time and really being there. Like for us, mandatory overnight date once a week, plus a little bit of afternoons here and there. Important, especially if you have kids. You gotta get rid of the kids somehow so you can spend time together.
That's our biggest love relationship strategy of all time. And I want to stress overnight date. Nobody does that. Couples don't do
24 hours.
24 hours. So basically we would get our childcare hooked up and go into the city and have an overnight date. It's not good enough to go out for dinner and then come back and deal with putting the kids to bed.
It's an immersion.
That breaks the magic. This
Yeah.
is grown-up time.
Yeah.
This is how our love relationship is still hot as what, right? After 30 years of marriage, we have, because we've always had adult time, we've always had grown-up time. Those are our sex dates, there are intimate dates, there are romance dates. So an overnight date once a week, no matter where in the world we are, has been our biggest strategy.
But we have other rhythms like daily connections and all that stuff. But you guys, the most important thing is time and deep communication.
Yep.
And if you've fallen out of intimacy, just start with a dinner to talk, or you can get in bed and cuddle and talk. You have to start touching. Intimacy is so important, you guys. Even if you just hold each other's hands, or to start, you need to get back into the touching and the feeling of each other, because there's nothing, you can't get closer to another human being than when you are intimate with them. And That's just an amazing.
Another thing that I would suggest is go through Lifebook as a couple. That will rock your world. You'll be able to create a common vision for your life, get excited about being together again, and then watch Category 13 after that.
Yeah, yeah.
Martin, have you seen Category 13?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, great. Well, we'll share that with your tribe when the time is right.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's a powerful tool, and we'll just we'll leave that nugget there to germinate in people's minds, I think. Yes, exactly. Final question then, because I've kept you now for 9 minutes over my allotted time because I'm cheeky like that. If you were going to pick 3 really simple things that someone can implement tomorrow that will make a big difference, like the smoothie, which my partner Rebecca adores. It's like I'm still trying to find a flavor, a way of kind of getting it that for me, but I'll get to work on that, add some lime into it. But if you were gonna pick 3 things to implement, what would you choose?
Well, John's going to share something with you that's
Okay.
Go.
Okay, so we have a little system. This is a little habit tracking system, and it's called the 12 Sacred Choices. This is in our second level course after the Lifebook program. So basically, what this is, and this is the most profound personal development strategy that we've ever discovered in our entire journey, Martin, which is why we're sharing it. It's called 12 Sacred Choices because basically what it is it's a simple habit tracking system. And these are 12 small daily behaviors that change every month, depending on where we are.
It's actually a way to get into the present moment. Because the only time anything happens is in the present moment. The only time you can change anything is now in the present moment, which is never ending. We're always in the never ending present moment, right? But this right here brings down the things you really want into simple daily freaking things in the present moment.
These little daily behaviors are what turn you into the person that you want to become. Your goals turn your life into the life that you want to live. Your habits turn you into the person you want to become. So I'm just going to share a couple of these, a couple of our current 12 sacred choices, because I'd pick 3 of these, right? So first one is morning gratefulness. This is literally, Martin, it's 1 minute. It's 1 friggin' minute, or it can be longer.
Yeah.
It's just simply allowing yourself to be grateful for the wonderful things that you have in your life. And that sets up your day. Just
that one alone would make your life different.
Yeah,
if you really did fall into gratefulness 1 time a day for 5 minutes, change your life.
Gratefulness is magic. It behaves different than any other emotion because you cannot simultaneously be thankful and hold any form of negativity in your consciousness at the same time. So if you want to eradicate negativity, get yourself to dial into the things that you're grateful for. It will, in that moment, it will have to leave because there is no room for it.
It's a mathematical thing.
Yeah. All right, and here are a couple more. Meditation. Meditation has probably a more profound effect on more categories of your life than any other single strategy. That's what we've discovered. It shows up in 6, 7 of the different 12 categories. The green smoothie or the vegetable juice, the fresh vegetable juice is just so, that guarantees that you're going to get the nutrition you need. That one thing, liquid salad, that's a great thing. Exercise, whatever it is for you. Whatever it is for you. If you can only do 20 minutes a day, do 20 minutes a day. If you can do a hardcore workout, do a hardcore workout. Exercise, yoga, stretching. I have on my list that I want to study every day. I try to study for a half hour to an hour. Anything I want. History, philosophy, whatever I'm into. If I'm into a business thing and I need to study business, as long as I'm learning and growing. And so that's one of my dots. Delight Missy.
Yay!
Every day I want to do something to delight her. I want to be a great husband. Have a really deep connection with my kids. And then lastly, and this was a game changer when I added this a couple years ago, Martin, if I can get through the entire day with 0 negative thinking, I get my dot.
This is mind dart.
And
right
if I don't.
Yeah.
Now, I can't help it if a negative thought comes into my head. Nobody can. We can't help the thoughts that fall into our head. What we can help, though, is if we attach to those thoughts and go down that negative thought road for 45 minutes. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
grows.
We all do that, right? So if I can arrest that process, yeah, a negative thought fell into my head, but I'm not going to indulge that right now. I'm going over here. If I can make it through a full day without indulging in a negative thought road, which basically is that's just destructive energy, then I get my dot. And so that's been a great one.
Yeah.
The big picture strategy is tracking daily behaviors. And then the micro is, if I had to pick 3 on this list, I'd have to go with gratefulness.
Meditation.
I'd have to go with 7. If I had to pick 3, I'd have to go with 7 at least.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna-
well, let's you've given us enough, so we don't need to narrow it down to 3. But I like that idea of indulging, because effectively what you've done is you've added a conscious layer to that idea of thoughts. Because I think anybody that's kind of thought about mindfulness knows that we can't control what comes in. It's just whether we latch onto it or not.
Exactly.
But even knowing that is hard. But when you've attached a gamification to it, like getting that dot at the end of the day, you've added such a consciousness to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I want to just say something that's very interesting, because it's how we started this whole conversation. We're talking about mental health, but it's really your emotions, your physical, and your mental, right? And these 3 things that we're talking about, these sacred choices: meditation, gratitude, health and fitness, those things, if you can just do simple things daily that make your body feel good, your mind and your emotions, so that you can go out there and cope with the challenges of the day, that's huge.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah. That's amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I've kept you for far too long because
Anytime, my friend. It's always great to hang out with you, Martin.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And for those that want to kind of explore Lifebook further, there is a free masterclass in the description below. There's also access to the virtual summit, the Men's Mental Health Virtual Summit, where you can see more of Jon and Missy and more about their story and Lifebook. It is all going to lead to the same place, so just find yourself to Lifebook in some way, shape, or form. I've done it 3 times. I can't even. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin.
There are no more
Martin.
words, but thank you so much, guys. Have an amazing Christmas, New Year, holidays.
Happy New Year, my friend. We'll talk to you after the 1st.
For sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.